Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest Top 5 episode, the show where I give a top 5 about some progressive rock topic. Usually my wife is the one that generates these topics, and then I just give a list off the top of my head about how I feel about this particular topic. So hopefully you guys enjoy that format. If you guys do, I do this every Thursday now, and I'd love for you guys to join me, so please subscribe if you haven't yet. That would really help the channel, as well as a like or a comment is always much appreciated to help me out here. So thank you guys so much for your support. And jumping into today's concept, really, this is more tied into the theme of the week. As I've been mentioning over the course of this week, I've been talking about the band Riverside. And so in conjunction with talking about Riverside, ranking their albums, talking about their new release, I thought it would be cool to do a top 5 Riverside songs. And there's a lot to choose from. I've been diving deep into their catalog lately, so I have a long list here of possibilities, but I've narrowed it down to a 5 that I feel pretty good about, that I think really reflects a good cross-section of their talents. As some honorable mentions before I get into the main list, I thought about Wasteland, the title track from their album Wasteland, just a really cool folky vibe, almost like a Jethro Tull type sound, but then combined with this almost spaghetti western vibe. It's really unique and interesting. I thought of Parasomnia from Rapid Eye Movement, probably my favorite track from that album. Has a really good blend of some dark heaviness, but also a lighter section in the mid part of the song. Deprived, Irretrievably Lost Imagination from Shrine of New Generation Slaves really surprised me. Just a really dark and interesting song with a lot of different moods, and it's an 8-minute song, almost an epic in a lot of ways. Has this cool saxophone part at the end. I thought about The Same River from Out of Myself, the very first song on their very first album. Just a really cool atmospheric opening, almost evokes this Pink Floyd atmosphere before it moves into a heavier movement. I think it really is a great statement for what the band's about and really leads into their opening of their career in a lot of ways. And then Egoist Hedonist from ADHD, just a really classic, cool song that really strikes a good balance. It's a good single type song, but it has these like horns and this fun vibe, but it's talking about some darker themes, and it's just a really cool movement from the band. So those were some honorable mentions I wanted to get out of the way. But moving into my top 5, number 5 is The Place Where I Belong from their latest album, ID.Entity. This is just such a great track. It's an extended, about 13-minute song that starts with a more acoustic guitar and vocals and an almost folky flavor, great atmospheric keyboards, and then it moves into another section with some funky bass lines and a killer groove and some screaming organ. It just really, I like when they get into this groove vibe, and it's just really fun, and you bounce your head along to it, and that's one of my favorite sections. Moving into the next section, which is more a folky acoustic guitar and vocals section, some gorgeous piano, and a really beautiful piece of music. I love the outro with some really tasty guitar and key soloing. Really thematically rich track as well, talking about the identity of where you feel you belong in the world, and how the world and society can kind of try to box you in and tell you what you should do and who you should be, voice upon you this idea of like, you need to be this person, but you have to just embrace yourself and find your place and box out all the noise and just try to find where you fit in. I think it's a really thematically rich song for the world we're living in today. Number 4 is Time Travelers from Love, Fear, and the Time Machine. A really thoughtful, plaintive ballad, beautiful acoustic guitar accompanies Duda's wonderful voice. It's just a addictively gorgeous melody with just the right keyboard atmosphere in the background to give this the weight it needs. Just a great sense of nostalgia and using the past to inform what we're going to do with our future, the Time Travelers theme. It's not like a heavy sci-fi conceptual, short story type thing. It's more just about looking back into our past to inform what decisions we're going to make in our future, to give us that hope in the future that we can learn from our past mistakes, take that nostalgia and the things we loved about what happened in our past, and use that moving forward to create a great direction for our lives. And just the chef's kiss, the great part to this that just puts it over the top for me is the ending. It's just a beautiful, magical ending with a beautiful, understated guitar solo and almost a hypnotic feel that leads us out of this track. Just some beautiful piano melodies, and it's just a beautiful listen that I really appreciate. I like their more ballad-esque sound. and some of these shorter songs that really focus just on great songcraft and great melodies. And I think this is a great way to showcase that through this track. Number 3 is Left Out from Anno Domini High Definition, a really cool track that goes through so many different movements and vibes. Starts out with more of a quiet atmospheric bass line with an amazing guitar line accompanying before Duda's awesome vocals enter. There's such amazing guitar work with some beautiful soloing. Some of the soloing guitar on this by Peter is just really epic and really beautiful. I really love this. This transitions to almost a bit of a lighter feel in sections with a tinkling piano, discussing what could have been, leading into a ferocious organ solo and soaring guitar, culminating in a heavy instrumental finish that has all this bombast and progginess that you could muster. Really great stuff. Love how the track balances this lighter, moodier feel with more of the heavier rocking proggy sections. It's just a really cool exploration of their sound in this extended way. And the song itself is a great reflection on our reaction to the dysfunction of our modern society. You know, I think the idea of left out is feeling like you're left out from the world, because in order to deal with the dysfunction, sometimes you shrink into yourself and you become reclusive in a lot of ways. And because of that, you're left out of society. And I think it's having these parallels to people with mental illnesses who feel this way, who maybe seem despondent and unresponsive, but it's because they're going inwards because of the society that we live in that is toxic and can be really harmful for people, and thus they get somewhat left out of everything. And I think that's something that really should be explored and is an interesting topic that I think they really expertly look into on this album in whole. Number 2, I have Escalator Shrine from Shrine of New Generation Slaves. Great atmospheric opening with a classic bass line and organ backing. Almost has a groovy, funky vibe, but a cool build-up, leading to a more galloping bass line and a sudden, more rocking feel to the song with some intense organ work. And the final section gets back to that laid-back feel, but with a darker side to it and a soaring ending that accentuates this dark, ominous finale to this track, dealing a bit with consumerism and about how we feel like we're having some forward momentum on this escalator, but really we're staying static, right? We're staying in one place, and it's the escalator driving us upward. So it's somewhat of this idea that there's an illusion that we're moving forward because of what the world and society and consumerism tells us. It's letting us think that we're progressing by acquiring more stuff and by buying into their hype and all of that sort of thing. But we're just somewhat stuck in the same place, even if there's an illusion of movement, that we're still the same person underneath. And we're somewhat addicted to this cycle and to this escalator that takes us really nowhere enriching or meaningful. So I think that's an interesting allegory, interesting way to describe this. And that's at least what I get out of the song and its meaning. And so it's a really cool track that I think is a really seminal piece for the band and really showcases them in this modern era and how they're still able to craft these great progressive rock epic pieces. And speaking of progressive rock epic pieces, my number 1 is the title track from Second Life Syndrome. I really love this track. It's really the first track that really struck me hard as like, this is a masterpiece of their discography. You know, this is a 15-minute epic track that goes through so many moods and feels. Some tasty guitar lead lines open with this atmospheric section before we get some bass lines and a shuffling drum pattern. Feels very Floydian in how it builds up its atmosphere, leads to some big sounds with some good guitar riffage and organ. Once again, Duda's thoughtful lyrics in this. This song's more... It's hard to take this song out of the conceptual piece to really talk about its themes, but really it's basically talking about the protagonist having this internal struggle of having someone they love and having feelings for that person, but realizing that this may be a toxic relationship because that person is placing expectations on them and maybe doesn't truly love them for who they are, but for who they wish they were. And so it's more about trying to embrace your true self and sometimes having to erase the past in order to move on and be able to embrace who you really are. So there's a bit of a somber feel, a somber groove in here, some keyboards, a softer vocal. We get some chanting vocals and things. Really what's great about this track is the atmosphere that it builds, and it has this really great mood and vibe to it. and that really leads to a big emotional payoff towards the end. Some great soaring guitar leads, some Floydian atmosphere, some big emotional payoffs, and some fabulous bass lines, all in this fabulous finishing instrumental section that showcases everything the band does well. So that's what I really appreciate from the band. Those are my favorite tracks, but there's so many great tracks from the band. I'm sure many of you might have different tracks that strike you and you put them in a different order or whatever. I'd love to see it in the comments. Please let me know your favorite Riverside tracks if you're a fan of the band like I am. And if you're not, go out and check out these songs. They're really great songs. Riverside are really one of the greatest modern prog bands in my opinion. I think they've just really knocked it out of the park with everything they've done. So thank you guys for joining me on this Riverside week. Hopefully it wasn't too much discussion all about the same band. I know I probably repeated myself with a lot of these themes and things that I've been talking about, but I've had a real blast talking about one of my favorite bands this week. So hopefully you did as well. So thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate all the support, and just keep enjoying the music. Bye, everybody.